EBSA, an NVR approach to emotionally based school avoidance. Introductions. My name is Gordon Powrie. I'm an outreach teacher for low attendance young people and a level 4 NVR practitioner and trainer. Today I'm going to be talking about EBSA, emotionally based school avoidance, and my experience of using NVR based approaches to provide support to re-engage with education as part of a specialist team. As part of my master's dissertation, I interviewed young people, carers and education professionals to explore how beliefs and attitudes impact attendance. Definition of EBSA. Firstly, let's review our definition of EBSA. A broad umbrella term used to describe a group of children and young people who have severe difficulty in attending school due to emotional factors, often resulting in prolonged absences from school. The key words to take note of are severe difficulty and prolonged. Non-attendance often feels like a choice to adults who are worried about a young person, but unlike truancy, you will find young people avoiding school to be especially resistant to authoritarian approaches and punishment as a motivator to attend. EBSA is not a choice, it's a difficulty. It's important at this point to make a distinction between school avoidance and truancy. Truancy consists of isolated incidents of non-attendance, normally to engage in other social activities. A pattern of attendance that consistently avoids school at certain times should be treated as early signs of EBSA, and intervention should be considered to reduce the risk of complete cessation of attendance. Many cases of EBSA last much longer than necessary because of the relational damage that often occurs in early stages between carers and young people in schools, and perhaps most importantly, carers in schools. Framing EBSA as a severe difficulty allows professionals like us to re-engage with our empathy for the young person and carers. This apparently slight change has a cascading effect through all communications between everyone involved. This can be the difference between a coordinated, connected and consistent intervention or an ineffective series of attempts typified by deteriorating relationships and a growing sense of helplessness and frustration for everyone involved. Prolonged is our second key idea. It's important to acknowledge that EBSA rarely develops overnight, and in hindsight we can often see the signs of deteriorating attendance from before the onset of consistent avoidance. Overcoming EBSA is a prolonged process, from pre-intervention through all the stages of behaviour change necessary to re-establish consistent attendance, right through to ongoing supports to prevent relapse. You might find the word relapse strange in this context, but we are talking about behaviour change, not correction. All behaviour change includes relapse as part of the process of rewiring habits and responses. Try not to be too frustrated or disappointed by relapse incidents. They're normal, and if you expect them and plan for them, you'll be much more in control of the situation, and this confidence will boost the young person and carers as they work hard to get back on the wagon, so to speak. The tripartite ecological model. As part of your NVR training, you will have heard about the ecological model. The idea that each of us has certain circles of influence around us, from our closest relatives to our immediate environment, and on to include the influence of global events. The first two circles of influence around every young person are family and school. To get the best outcomes for EBSA, it is absolutely vital that these three circles, the young person, the carer and the professionals, are on the same team. Any relational strain between any pair in this triangle makes overcoming EBSA even harder. Communicating connection and not correction to both young people and carers is harder than it sounds, because we have no control over any preconceptions people might have of our motives. This is why the most important thing you can do to help a young person with EBSA is find a way to build warm and trusting relationships with their carers. Your PACE principles of playfulness, acceptance, curiosity and empathy will help, because carers will be suffering some sense of social shame related to their child's inability to attend school. Anxiety and shame. Through your training and experience, you will no doubt be aware of the role anxiety plays in the young person's patterns of attendance. Using an NVR approach is a very appropriate choice for interventions with the young person, but they are not the only anxious ones. How is anxiety affecting the carer responses? How is it affecting yours? The anxieties being felt by the adults are likely around the feelings of being negatively judged by someone. That might seem obvious for carers, but we all answer to someone too. And if we're not making progress, will someone think that we're not good at our jobs? Anxiety relating to negative social evaluation is intimately linked with shame. Remember, we have a shield of shame too. Listen out for examples of lie, blame, minimise and rage from carers, and you will know to be aware of carers' anxieties and respond skillfully. Listen for your own too. If you feel like you've reacted to frustration and anxiety, Take a deep breath and forgive yourself. This is tough work. Acknowledging is the important bit, and being able to recognise these principles affect our future reactions. Approaching that fact proactively is the key to persistence. So what should I do? Well, firstly, let's talk about what you might be better avoiding. Things to avoid include pleading, begging, catastrophising, ignoring the problem, avoiding difficult conversations, bribery or emotional blackmail. Also coercing, threats of punishment, removal of devices that are used for social interaction, grounding, dismantling young persons' opinions. Lie, blame, minimise or rage. So what should you do? Things to try include: take a fresh look at establishing push and pull factors. Take a good look at these and do not be overly influenced by previous assumptions or reports. The School Refusal Assessment Scale can help, and resources for this are available in the EBSA toolkit. Motivational interviewing techniques. If you haven't received formal motivational interviewing training, then try to get some at the earliest opportunity. Many good resources exist online, but the key principles of motivational interviewing are skillful use of language to elicit change talk. No human changes their behaviour without internalising the reasons for change. Skillful use of motivational interviewing techniques generates opportunities for this internalisation to begin. The goal is to move from the pre-contemplation stage to contemplation, so that planning for action can be translated more easily into action and eventually maintenance. The key tools you should consider have the acronyms OARS. O for open questions. Try open questions like, what did you enjoy at school when you were younger? Instead of closed questions like, you know that school attendance is important for your future, don't you? A is for affirmations. Much like acceptance in the PACE model, it's important that you demonstrate that you are genuinely listening. Affirmations like, that must have been really hard for you, or, I guess I understand why you would feel that way, are very useful in building shared empathy. R is for reflections. Reflections are our response to open question responses and should lead to further open questions focused on eliciting change talk, while acknowledging and accepting reasons to avoid change. For example, I thought it was really interesting that you said you enjoyed maths in primary school, but you hate it now. I think lots of people feel that way. I think it's a shame that people start enjoying something, but then something changes. Was it just maths, or were there other things that you liked learning about? S is for summaries. When you feel like the line of interviewing has run its course, either a response you want to reinforce or a lack of progress to change talk, a short summary is a great way to signal listening and empathy. Acknowledging anti-change talk first and highlight pro-change talk later. For example, that's really interesting. I wish more people would take the time to listen to people's reasons for not being able to go to school all the time. So you were saying that the tests and exams and pressure and stuff that they started pouring on in second year just sort of sucks all the fun out of school. It's a shame because you really like learning. You like maths as much as anyone likes maths, and you had some really good mates to hang out with at lunchtime and stuff. Then move on to another related topic. For example, elicit more positive talk about social groups, teachers, classes, activities, or personal attempts to feel less anxious. These techniques are transformative, and with practice you can use them skillfully to send the message of support and commitment you want, while also actively supporting someone to move closer to change. The relationship is key and should be prioritised in every intervention. An NVR approach. Firstly, think carefully about whether simple school attendance is really your small basket behaviour just now. It might be, but remember that EBSA is not a disorder, it's a collection of symptoms, and looking for underlying causes and unmet needs should be the adult's top priority. Firstly, establish small basket behaviour through discussion with adults. Carers' opinions must be given priority in any disagreement about basket behaviours. They will be the lead at home, so any forced priorities will deteriorate under stress. Plan an announcement and autopilot statements that are built on opinions that were elicited through using the motivational interviewing techniques. Use the young person's words pro-change where possible. Acknowledge their concerns, validate their feelings. Reinforce any positives that the young person has shared and establish a teamwork approach between the young person, the carers, and we, the professionals. Make sure you plan the roles of all adults around the child comprehensively. Who will be delivering the announcement? Who will be reinforcing the announcement or delivering mini announcements, autopilot statements or supporter messages? What are the supporter roles, including supports for carers and professionals to ensure adequate self-care and reduce the rate of compassion fatigue? What sort of relational gestures will be used appropriate to each person's role? What sort of practical support will be in place? For example, home visits, learning support, facilitation of varied social interactions and relationships. Also, take the time to plan adult communication. These should be daily, weekly, and certainly monthly communication between carers and professionals. Very quickly, you should try to establish and agree roles, responsibilities, and expectations before beginning any intervention. These can be adapted throughout, but clarity at the outset helps. Try to set a review date of at least 6 to 12 weeks. Until then, stick to your NVR plan as much as possible. And finally, celebrate success. It's tempting to focus on the negatives, but make it a point to celebrate success. Not just the young person, but the adults too. Tell a carer or a colleague what a great job they're doing, and watch the positive effects. In conclusion, EBSA is a complex phenomenon with potentially long-lasting negative effects on young people and their families. It occurs across all countries and cultures and a rate between 2 and 5% as established by decades of research. By the time young people are avoiding or refusing to engage with education, they have most likely been struggling for months or years, so take that into account when thinking about the pace of intervention. The rule of thumb is as fast as possible without making it worse. An NVR approach to EBSA targets the key aspects of EBSA, namely anxiety, social isolation, relationship breakdown, strained carer-professional relationships, and hidden or unmet needs. It is very rare that happy and connected young people avoid or refuse school, so please remember, you aren't just helping young people get an education, you're supporting them to be happy and successful people for the rest of their lives. It's a tough job to take on such responsibility, but you wouldn't be here listening to this if you weren't already passionate about making people's lives better. So thank you for the wonderful positive impacts you have and will have in the future.